Today I'm going to show you how to set up a simple website development environment. First, I'm going to show you how a development environment like that behaves, and then I'm going to show you how to set it up and build a simple website. So to start with, I build a website in advance just so you see what our target goal is. The main goal is to be able to make changes quickly to the website and see them right away after you change them. So for instance, I'm changing the title, I'll save it. And there the title changed without me having to do a reload. And this, okay. So you watch again, I'll make some more changes to it. Save it, and the website's updating. Now this website also has style sheets and JavaScript, and making changes to the style sheet and JavaScripts happens just as quickly as well. So let's make the background color change. Olive and white. So this is, I've just been changing the style sheet, and quickly I get feedback right away about the changes I made. And the same thing's true. I have some JavaScript in it. This JavaScript is actually creating a text node and then shoving it into the web page. So let's quickly just change the text. And save it. So there we go. I make changes to the website and I get immediate feedback without even having to click my mouse around or reload the web browser. So let's quickly talk about the tools that you're going to need to download in order to follow along with this tutorial. You're going to need an editor, a web browser, and a task runner. The editor I've chosen is the Visual Studio Code environment. You can download it at the URL given there, code.visualstudio.com. And it's a lightweight editor. It runs both on Windows and Mac, and we're going to use it to edit HTML, JavaScript, and style sheets. The browser I've chosen is Chrome, the Google Chrome one. It also runs on Windows and Mac, and you'll be able to use it to do debugging later on in later tutorials. And a task runner, which you probably may not know what a task runner is right now, but I've chosen preprocess.io. It's basically it too runs on Windows and Mac, and it'll work as a web server. It'll pre-process some of the special types of files that we're going to be editing, and it also sits there and watches the files, looks for changes, and then reserves them when a change is made. So what I want you to do is download each of those tools, and then when you've got them installed on your machine, you're ready to go to the next section of this tutorial. Now that you have the tools downloaded, let's start making our website. And so the first step to building a website, usually for me, is I lay out the directory structure that's going to hold the content for my website. I call this scaffolding the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build that directory structure on my desktop. I create a folder called website. Open up the folder. Create a folder inside that for holding JavaScript. Another one for holding style sheets. And I'm going to have two flavors of style sheets. I'm going to have a CSS style sheets, which are the plain old style sheets, and the modern style sheet language, CSS. I'm going to drag those two style sheet folders into the main style sheet folder. And now this is my basic layout that I'm going to use for holding the content from my website. JavaScript folder, style folder, with CSS and SCSS folders inside of it. Once I have the directory structure created for my website, it's time to start adding content. To do that, I'm going to use an editor. So Command space on Mac, and then type in Visual Studio, and we launch Visual Studio. It's just got the welcome screen, and what I do is I drag my website, that's a website directory, from my desktop into Visual Studio. And we see here, there's the directory structure. Now what I want to do is create, this website will be very simple. It's going to have one web file. It's going to be index.html. So we hover over this, we notice there's some icons. one of the icons is for creating a new file, another one's for creating a new folder, refreshing, and then collapsing and expanding the folders inside the browser here. So what we'll do is create a new file called index.html, and we make sure it's at the top level of our project. There it is, it's at the top level. And fortunately, Visual Studio gives us a quick way to build the content for our index.html. So we make sure we open the index.html file. We type an exclamation mark, and now you see that there's a plugin called Emmet inside Visual Studio that's offering me something to do quickly. So if I hit the tab key now, while this pop-up is still up, and just after I've typed the exclamation mark, it'll fill in a template for a simple web page. So I'll save it, and let's just give a simple name, a heading for it. So we'll call sample website, and we'll also give the title the same, website. And now we have a very simple content, and it's now time to try and see what our website looks like. Now that we have some simple content for our website, it's time to launch our website and see what it looks like. So what we're going to do is use a simple task running tool called Prepros, which is a point and click task runner. And it opens up here blank, and what we need to do is drag our website folder into it. We've successfully added the website to it, and now we're going to launch a preview of it. So I hover over here and open live preview, and that's our website. Okay, and what we want to do is actually see if it's running in the web server, and it's going to dynamically update like we're promised. So we're going to minimize Preprosto. We'll leave it running in the background so it can do some file watching and relaunch the website, but we'll minimize it. So here's our content for our website. We'll make some few changes to it. Bump, bump. Bump, bump. So the heading's changed. I save it. Let's keep your eye on the right here. Yes, and the website content's being modified automatically as we update the content. We have a website that we can update, and dynamically we get to see the changes. So let's add some styling to the website next. Go over here to the style directory, cascading style sheet, and we'll add a main.css file. Main.css. Okay, and we'll save it. It's empty. Well, no. Let's change the body of it, of our website, and we'll apply a color to the background. We'll make it black, and for the foreground color, we'll make it white. So we're basically going to change the colors around. Now we go back to our index.html, and we include the style sheet. Now fortunately, Visual Studio gives a way for us to quickly type these types of things. So we just start typing in link, and then cursor down to the CSS option of it, and hit enter. Now our style sheet is called main.css. It's in the style CSS directory. So we'll hit save, and bang, it took our changes to our website right away. And if we go back to the style sheet, make maybe a little change. Let's add a border, for instance. 1 pixel, solid, red. And there we have it. We're making changes to our style sheet, and automatically they're being shown up in our website without having to point or click or reload. For this next step, to make sure that we can process advanced style sheets, we have to make sure the settings are correctly set up in Preprosto. So what we'll do is we bring Preprosto to the front, Click on the settings. Look at the compiler settings. Check out Sass, which is the style sheet format we're going to use. It's also known as SCSS. Check out the output settings. Make sure that replace segment is set, and it's going to replace directories Sass and SCSS with SSS, meaning anything that's in these directories, Sass or CSS, is going to go to the equivalent CSS directory when it generates the code. So it's important that that setup's there, otherwise the next step won't work properly. We'll put Preprosto in the background again, keep it running. The next step is to use some advanced styling language, which isn't natively supported by the browser. So it has to be pre-processed, and then standard style sheet is created after the file's pre-processed. So we'll create what's called a Sass file or a CSS file. So it's going to have, to start with, it's going to have the same styling as the main CSS file. It's going to be called main.scss, and we're going to copy and paste what is in the main CSS. Okay, now the important thing that's going to happen here is if Prepros is correctly configured, this file is going to cause Prepros to regenerate a main CSS file from it. So save this here. You notice that it recognized the main SCSS, but what's special about this language now is, unlike normal CSS files, we can have variables. So we'll go with a background color. We'll change it, set it to a value of olive, for instance, and then we'll use that variable. And save. And there, we just updated our website, and this style sheet, this SCSS style sheet, was processed by Preprosto in the background, and it was used to generate a normal CSS file. And here it is. You see the variable, here's the CSS file it generated, and the variable disappeared. It hard-coded it here. So, and we can also put in another variable for, say, the foreground color, for example, and we'll make it black. Save it here. And see the variable show up. Whoop, foreground color. And save. And that's it. Our styles are being dynamically displayed on our website. Okay, so our last step is to add some dynamic content to our website. We'll create a JavaScript file and add it to the website. So click in the JavaScript directory, click New File, type main.js. In the main.js, then we'll create a text node equal to, okay, document dot, add some text to it, hello world. Then we'll, let's see, we'll get an element by an ID, so we're going to add an element to our, let's see, so we have, what we've done here is we've created a text node, then we've looked for an element on our web page called with an ID of main, and then we've appended the text node to it. Okay, both lines end with a semicolon, so in order for this to work, we're going to have a div or something like that with the ID of main in it. So let's do that. Bang, and it's done. So now we have to add the JavaScript here. So just like with the style sheet, there's some quick lines, so we can just type in script, cursor down to the source version of it, then put in JS main.js, and that will include our source code in. and presto, there it is, our JavaScript run, and it added the text. And let's just change that slightly to show that it's really compiling it, and save it. Yep, so the JavaScript, changed JavaScript was loaded in our browser and executed automatically. Okay, just like the style sheets, I want to use a version of JavaScript that's not natively supported in the browser yet. The reason I want to use that new version of JavaScript is that it's a lot of new language features that make it better for me to write bigger JavaScript programs and more structured JavaScript programs. So how do we do that? So what we do is we bring Preprosto to the front again. We look at the website. So let's refresh this website. Make sure it has all the content in it. We pick the particular JavaScript file, our main.js. Click on it, and it shows some settings. What we want to do is we're going to take the main.js, which is going to hold JavaScript that our browser doesn't understand, and we want to compile it and have it generate a main-dist.js, which will be JavaScript that our web browser can understand. Okay? So once again, we're going to take the main.js, which is going to be using JavaScript language features that our browser doesn't understand. Preprosto is going to look at that file and then transform this new JavaScript into the old JavaScript, equivalent old JavaScript, which will provide the same functionality. So in order to do that, we turn it so auto-compile is on. We turn Babel on, which is the feature for understanding new languages. And just for convenience now, we're going to turn off the uglify and mangle so that we can take a look at the generated code and it will be readable. Those settings are done. We'll click Process File. Okay. It processed our file. So now we can again return Preprosto to the background. So we'll minimize it, but leave it running. And we see that we have a main dist file, almost exactly the same content as our original file. It just has this use strict in it, which is a newer language feature. Okay. So what we want to do is go to our index.html, and instead of it loading the main.js, we want it to load the generated file instead. So main-dist.js. We'll save that. And now our website, in theory, should be using this main-dist.js. Let's make a change here. I'll change it to hello people. So this is, and presto, the new code is being loaded into the browser immediately. So let's use a new JavaScript feature. We'll create a class, which is a concept that the browser, a lot of browsers don't understand yet. And we'll create what's called a getter method, and this will return the text that we want displayed. Okay, we'll replace this little piece here. Instead of hard coding it, we're going to use our class and the getter method on it, and we'll save. And it says hello Tony. Okay, and so this is the code that I wrote. This is the code that was generated, and this was the code that was loaded into our browser. So we're able to dynamically, we're able to write modern JavaScript, and even though it's not understood by our browser yet, we have a tool that will convert it into old-fashioned JavaScript and load it into our browser and show it. So that's really it for the demonstration. We've set up all the tools and we made a simple website. And just to review what's going on here, I can change the title, and change the HTML dynamically shows up in the website without me having to compile anything or reload anything. Same with the style sheets. I can add things to the style sheet. For instance, some padding inside the box, and it's automatically shown in the web browser again immediately without me having to do any reloading. I'll add a margin around it. Super. Okay, So I can use this fancy, the SCSS style sheet format, which has advanced features, and it gets turned into the old-fashioned style sheet format. Same with the JavaScript. I can write JavaScript with new features in it, make changes to it, and the tools in the background will generate JavaScript the browser understands and reload it in the browser and demonstrate it to me. So I hope that was a useful demonstration for you. That's kind of the way your development environment should work. You should be able to make rapid changes and see the changes right away as quickly as possible. And generally, that's a rule for any good development environment. You get feedback as quick as possible.